How's it going, people? There's a lot of discussion in the media right now about the cost of living crisis. Basically the fact that everything is going up in price and our wages are not adjusting to follow that price increase. I'm talking about gas, electricity, the weekly food shop, rent, interest, etc, etc, etc. Well, as if that wasn't bad enough, the cost of driving has jumped massively in the past few years, and particularly so since 2021. So in this video I wanted to show you the actual extent of what I'm calling the cost of driving crisis and give you some opinions and pointers on how best to combat it. I'd love to hear your experiences of the cost of driving crisis, so if you have any opinions or experiences, please drop them into the comment section down below. But before you do that, if you're new here, do hit the subscribe button, as you do get 2 videos every single week, and if you enjoy this kind of video, please do hit the like button as well. Make sure you hit an odd number of times to make sure it is as liked as possible, as it will really help me out. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. There are multiple factors that come into the cost of driving: vehicle excise duty, or road tax as it's sometimes called, fuel, car insurance, car maintenance, whether that's servicing or otherwise, and of course car purchasing, financing or leasing where relevant. So before we get into this video properly, I need to set some important context and take a trip down memory lane to 1972, 50 years ago, to show you exactly why the increase in the cost of driving in the past year is so significant. So adjusted for inflation, contrary to popular belief, it was generally more expensive to drive a car in 1972 than in 2022. Petrol was at about 8p per litre on average, which adjusted for inflation is 112p, so less than today's prices still, but cars were also much less fuel efficient in general, normally anywhere between 20 to 25 miles per gallon for your average daily driver, while today you can get cheap cars with over 50 miles per gallon, more than double that. So yes, you would pay less each time you went to the petrol station to fill your car, but you would visit the petrol station far more often, enough that it negates that benefit. In fact, in an interview done with the editor of Parker's on this topic, I love this quote in particular, which said, "I'm an age where I can remember petrol being 35p per gallon, and I don't ever recall it feeling cheap at the time." Vehicle excise duty was also in general more expensive too, at £25 for any car per year, which adjusted for inflation makes it £351 today, while you'll find most average daily drivers today between the £100 to £200 range. Same goes for car insurance, which is around £40 on average per year in 1972, which is £561 in 2022, while today the average policy is £460-ish. Add on the difference in salaries and this becomes even more clear, as annual wages in 1972 were just under £16,000 adjusted for inflation versus £30,500 today, though I know that of course there are some inherent problems with that data due to people with excess wealth today as well. Of course, you can take a clip of this data at any time in the past 50 years and probably find different results, and you have to take into account the cost of living outside of just driving, but in recent years, driving actually hasn't been ridiculously expensive compared to some previous years. That is, until 2022. So between 2021 to 2022, the cost of driving a petrol car has increased by approximately 1/5, around £313 in total to £1,800 if you drive the average number of miles. And in that I'm talking specifically about paying for petrol. The benefit in kind tax on cars used for company purposes as well as personal has increased by 1%, which on average cars is an additional £107 per year. The standard rate of vehicle excise duty is going up by £10 per year, and in the first year up to £120 increase. EVs aren't out of the woods either, with electricity prices up 54% for charging. There has been an average of £82 annual increase in the cost of car insurance, which has been driven by the cost of used cars generally increasing, as well as the cost of replacement parts increasing. Those used car values are up about 30% in the last 12 months, just to really drive home that point. Add on interest rates being a real threat right now, increasing all the time and looking to increase further, and the amount people will be paying for their PCP and hire purchase deals will be increasing too. There's a 6 to 10% increase in the price price of new tyres since 2021 and an increase of 5 to 8% on servicing your car as well. Even driving tests have increased by 1.5% year on year. And as if that wasn't enough, local councils are starting to impose workplace parking levies, which effectively get companies to pay for their parking spaces. Nottingham are already on this, charging £428 per parking space per year to companies, and companies recoup that by passing about half the cost down to employees. Add on the increasing tolls in areas like the ULEZ in London and some other cities around the country, and increasing parking costs for local residents, particularly in cities, and it's a pretty bleak view. All these things considered, the cost of driving has gone up by about a fifth in the past year, a 20% increase, which in the context of mad inflation and a cost of living crisis elsewhere is a real squeeze on consumers' pockets. Now that was a whole bunch of random figures, but what this means in practice is that in a recent study, 40% of drivers say they don't earn enough to pay the higher costs, and this figure increased to 55% for those aged between 25 to 34. My heart particularly goes out to the 17 to 24-year-olds who are expected to pay around £2,500 per year to run their cars. If you are 17-year-old me at school working 2 evenings and a Saturday per week at John Lewis, making around £400 per month to pay that kind of money to drive, which I also needed to go to work in the first place, you're saying that effectively half of my money per year would go on my car, not including parking costs and the likes. On top of this, nearly 1 in 3 motorists, 31%, expect they will need to take on an additional debt to afford to keep driving, and 18% have been forced to ask family or friends for financial support to run their car. If that doesn't sound like a cost of driving crisis to you, I really don't know what does. So what can we actually do about it? Barring anything illegal, I wanted to make 6 suggestions for people trying to keep driving cars through the potential cost of driving crisis. Firstly, and probably most obviously, try to drop your unnecessary car journeys where possible. I'm not talking about cutting out social driving or whatever, but I know for certain that I'm guilty of sometimes driving to the shops when I could easily have walked or ridden my bike. Secondly, some companies offer really good car schemes where you can buy or lease a car as a pre-tax benefit, and some workplaces even offer free charging for EVs if you're driving to work in one, and of course this won't apply to everyone. There are also some carpool schemes that you can get involved in, and of course selling your car and getting an EV might not be the right financial choice anyway, so this only applies to certain people. Number 3, if you have a car that has benefited massively from the used car price increases, maybe consider selling it and getting something cheaper with cheap running costs, as this will free up some cash while prices are high, which is good from a financial safety point of view, and it will decrease your monthlies, which is also a bonus. Number 4, if you buy something cheap and cheerful whose value doesn't rely on a full service history, maybe consider spending some time learning the basics of servicing a car. While you're here on YouTube, you can almost certainly find out how to check and change brake pads, oil, coolant and the likes, and also find out the majority of common issues to look out for on your car. I mean, literally most of my videos go through that. Either way, make sure you keep your car maintained well to avoid sudden large fees from problems caused by lack of love and attention. Number 5, find the best and cheapest petrol station near you and use it religiously. Don't be lazy by going to more expensive ones when you don't have to. And number 6, get your insurance quotes down when they're up for renewal. I've made videos in the past detailing exactly how to do it and showing me doing it as well. So learn from them, give your insurance providers a call, use some price comparison sites, and get yourself some savings. It's estimated that on average people can save around £120 on their car insurance costs per year, and I've proven that over the past 3 years by saving over £500 on car insurance by employing the right strategies. These should of course all be considered in the context of trying to live more frugally in a wider cost of living crisis, and of course they're entirely dictated by your personal financial situation. This is a really hard question. When will the cost of driving crisis end? I personally don't think it will anytime soon, and instead I think it will basically be a case of us learning to live with prices getting higher, while maybe the odd thing changes to bring down total costs. I think as and when we see the cost of living crisis turn around, the cost associated with driving won't be as burdensome, so part of it is just waiting it out and surviving. On top of this, I think the costs associated with servicing etc will be dependent on the cost of living crisis, as of course if you're a mechanic you need to keep the lights on, and if those lights cost more money, that price is going to get passed on to the consumer. Watch my video on the petrol price hikes to get a fuller understanding of when prices could also decrease. We have seen them drop from their highs earlier this year, but they still aren't by any means enjoyable, and I don't see them dropping anytime soon. Finally, finally, as supply chains continue to catch up and be able to handle higher demand, we might see a decrease in costs of parts, particularly if in a few years' time we're on the other side of the chip shortage, with supply of new cars being better and used car costs decreasing. This will also impact car insurance prices as well. But all this has to be considered in the context of the UK's push alongside most other countries to have a less detrimental environmental and air quality impact, so it highly depends on those pieces. With that in mind, it probably does also rest on what the government does to entice ownership of renewable energy powered cars. So what do you think? Do you agree with me that we're living in a cost of driving crisis alongside the cost of living, or probably more aptly named cost of greed crisis? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to hear them. A quick reminder, if you enjoyed this video and you want to help me out with the cost of living and cost of driving crisis, do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new here, and a massive thanks as well to the patrons for their support through these difficult times. But as always, good luck out there and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Listen.